Hello, everybody. We are back with tutorial number 2 for Mr. Flappy Pelican. You ready? I am. All right, so right now, all he does is fall. He cannot fly. Let's give this bird some wings. Ready? All right, so first thing we're going to do, add some comments in here. And this will be with our pelican, and this will be him flying. All right, so what we want to make sure is that his height is currently greater than the green ground on the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if I is greater than h10, then we're going to do this. Remember what I is up top. I is his particular height, the bird's height. So now we're going to bring some touch into it. We're going to say if current touch dot state equals began, and your eye is less than or equal to the height of the screen. Now that is important because you don't want him to be flying off the screen, right? You don't want to be making him flap off the screen and then go over the tubes, and that's just going to cause a lot of problems here in a bit. So what we'll do is we'll just say if we begin the touch, we're going to add 10 pixels to it, and that's it. This is his distance. This is his flight every time. Every single time. So if we tap it, he'll go up 10 pixels. All right, we hit end there. And what we want to do, we want to make sure this is a little issue here. And this has to deal with the sprite. Oh, actually, you know what we can do? Let's do this. We've already done that up top, haven't we? It's been a while since I've done the video. So here, boom. There it is. Put that one right there and say if his current touch is began, meaning you started touching the screen and his height is less than the height of the screen, start doing that. And then you will draw the pelican at that. So let's get rid of this right here. Let's get a little bit more organized. Sorry about that. And that will be his flight. And this we'll put some more comments in here. Again, comments are really, really helpful for you as you are making your code, because you're going to forget, like I did. It's been a couple days since I made this the first video, so as I came back in here to the code, that's a good learning lesson for you to make sure you put the comments in there and make sure you know where you're going. So, and this is his gravity. So if you don't like the gravity, if it goes too slow, then we'll do that. So now we're going to touch the screen. I'll hit refresh there, and every time I touch the screen, he flaps. Now it does work that I can hold it down. We're not going to deal with that. If you want to try and figure it out, you can. But for the sake of this video, we're not going to do that. We're just going to make it so that he just moves up and down like that, even if I hold it. I thought maybe if we change this to ended, that he would fly. But if I let go, though, he will fly all the way up to the top. So that doesn't work. And if we take out and just put at current state, well, current state touching, yeah, doesn't work. So it's got to equal began there. Otherwise, he won't fall down. Okay, so that's that thing. Now, let's think about it this way. We've got it so that when he falls down, he does actually land there. And that's what I'm going to put this as. So, okay, so that draws him when he lands on the ground. And let's see, what else do we want to do here? All right, let's start drawing the tubes. Okay, let's start drawing the tubes. Now, where do we want to put this in the code? I want you to think about this. If we want the tubes, do we want the pelican to be on top of the tubes or behind the tubes? Well, I think I'm going to put the pelican on top. So where do I need to put the code? Do I need to put it above line 12 or below line 24? What do you think? Well, if you said above, that is correct, because otherwise it would draw the tube on top of him, and that's not going to work, okay? So let's start drawing the tubes here. Again, we'll put some comments in here. We're going to fill them, let's fill them with light orange. And let's draw one tube. We're going to end up drawing two tubes, one on top and one on bottom. So this will be tube 1. And this is, let's see. All right, this is the first tube. And let's do this. We want, now we're going to bring in another variable here, and we're going to call it J. And J is going to be the width of the screen. So this is the tube, just how we had I go up and down. J is going to go left and right for where the tube's position is. So J we'll make j less than or equal to the width. And because it's going to start far right on the width, right? And then it's going to go back left. And we want it to go not all the way back to 0. We want it to actually go less than 0. So we're going to say, let's do negative 10% of the width. So that means the tube's going to actually go 10% off of the screen, which is fine. It's going to be good for us. And I might come back, if you remind me, I'll come back and show you what's going to happen there. We want our rect mode here to be in the corner. We're going to start drawing our rectangles in the corner. All right, and let's do our first one. Our first one, our bottom left, and it's going to stay at the height of 10. All right, so our first rectangle here now is going to be, the J is its X position. It's only going to go up 10%. So it'll only go up 10%. And then we're going to do width of 10%. And then let's see what happens. We want the height to be, how should we do this? It's going to be width. Let's just put H50 for right now. Okay. So this is our first one. And then each time it goes through, it's going to be J minus 5. And that means it's going to go 5 pixels across the screen. And if J is less than or equal to negative W10, if it gets off the screen, which is right here, right, and this is its movement, and it moves left. Right. If it's after 10% of the screen there, we want J to equal width. That means it's going to go all the way back. It restarts it. Does that make sense? It restarts it. And then we want, if we do that, we'll make our score go up by 1, right? Does that make sense? We want our score to go up by 1 because of the fact that if that does happen, then you've gained a point. Now, the thing with score there, we want to make score to be 0 up at the top. So this is your initial score. All right, we haven't put the score on the screen yet, but we'll do that here in just a minute. But let's refresh here, and let's see what's going on. Why is this not happening? J, what does J start off with? Now we forgot to initialize J up top, so this is the Pelican's initial height. Now we need J to be the width because it's going to start over there, and this is the tube's initial height, or width rather. All right, look at that. It's working. All right, I forgot to add an end in here. Make sure you put on line 25 there. You put an end to close up your if J is less than width and J is greater than the negative 10. So let's talk about this. Notice how the rectangle is going completely off the screen. Whereas if I put that it was greater than or equal to 0, watch, it disappears. We'll refresh there. It disappears right as it gets to the edge, as opposed to looking smooth. You know what I mean? So if we put negative 10% there, it's actually going to look like it goes off the screen. And that's much nicer. Same thing with the width. Because the corner mode is on a rectangle mode, it's the bottom left corner. So it starts right at the width of the screen there. So that's pretty cool. So now that is the bottom tube. So let's, instead of tube 1, let's say tube bottom. And we want to now do the tube, actually let's do this, put the tube here. This is our bottom one, and this one will be the top one, tube. So I'm just going to copy this here, paste it right there, and I want it to be at the top. I don't want height 10%. Let's just do height like 80%. And now it's on the top. So now as it comes through, and I tap my Pelican over here, refresh there. Tap it, he'll go through there. Does that make sense? So that's pretty cool. So that works to where, now, it works through the two tubes. Now, but what if we wanted to do it random every time? And that's, the essential nature of the game is that it is random. Let's close this because we can get a little bit better view with our Pelican here. We want it to be random every time, right? So let's do that. Let's do this. Actually, let's come up here to our setup. Let's think about how we might do this. Well, we need to set up a variable every time, both for the top and the bottom. And the tube height of the bottom is going to be the one that's random, okay? And then the tube height of the top is going to be what's left over. And this is going to take a math variable here, and we are going to use the height, and we're going to multiply it by math.random, and it must be somewhere in between 10 and 50, okay? And then we want 10% of that number, so we're going to do times 0.1, or 0.01. And what that means is it's 1% of this random times the height. So that actually gives you, when we go back to our setup, it gives you a number between 0.1 to 0.5 of the height. So this is giving us a random height, all right? So to 0.01. All right, and then for the tube height top, let's just for right now, let's just say age 60, 60%, okay? And what that is going to do, the bottom is always going to be random, and then the top is going to be based on the bottom one. Does that make sense? We want the heights to be somewhat consistent. Right now, let's refresh it. Right now, this is a gap of, well, let's go down here and see. We can tell. If your bottom rectangle starts at 10%, and goes up to 50%. That means the height of this is 40% of the screen. Okay? This is 40% of the screen. This is 10% down here. The tube is 40%. Now, the top tube started at H80. So if this is 10%, this is 40%, and this starts at 80%. If we're doing our math correctly, it is a difference of, but it's a height of 50% right here. So it goes up, this is 40%, this is 10%, and, oh no, I'm doing my math wrong here. Let me put it on the screen here. What I'll do is I'll say, this is 10% down here, and it starts at 10% and goes up to 50%. So that's a height of 60%. So this is 60% of the screen right here, okay? And then this starts at H80. So in between, the gap there is 20%. Okay, and then this tube up here goes from 80% all the way up top to the height. And so that would be, if we wanted it to be that way, now if it would be 20%. So if we do 10, watch what happens, it shrinks. So 20% is the exact height of it up there. Okay, so for our tubes here, in order for the drawing to work out well, we want a gap. Let's see if this gap works for my Pelican. Does 20% work in between there? It actually doesn't. Let's make this one 40%, and I think that's going to be a better size for us. Yeah, that's better. That's 40%. Okay, so what that means, I'm going to pause it here, is you have 10% for the green, you have 40% here, so that's a total of 50% from bottom to the top of the first tube. Then you have H80 to the top, which is 20%. So 20% plus the bottom is 70%. So the gap here is 30% of the height. Now, this is where the math comes in, if you haven't been like blown over by the math already, is the top is 20%, the bottom is actually 40%. So the combined height between the two, the top and the bottom, is 60% of the height. Okay? So if the bottom, right here, is a random height between 10 and 50% of the screen, we can say that the top is therefore 60% of the screen minus the height bottom. Okay? That will give you what's left over of the top. So the bottom will be a random 10 to 50% of the screen. The top will be what's left over. Okay? And now we want to put that here. So instead of the bottom of 40%, we're going to put tube height, and we will put bottom there. And then, now down here, it's a little different. We want to have it go to a little bit, we want it to be 10% higher, right? Because that's the ground. And then we need to add the tube height bottom to it, and then 30%. So this takes into account the bottom grass, the bottom height of the tube, and then the gap, which is the H30 right here. So this is the grass. This is the tube height of the bottom. and this is the 30% that the gap is going to be there. Okay, and then now we want it still to be at width of 10%. That's the width of the tube. And then here we want this to be tube height top. This is the height of the tube height of the top. Okay, so we do that. And now is it random? Let's see if it changes drastically. All right, now it stayed the same. Now, what we've not done is we did it randomly. So I bet if we hit refresh, it'll give us a different height every time. Yeah, it's giving us a different height every time. So it's not randomizing once it gets to the end there. Does that make sense? It's randomizing when you refresh the game, but it's not randomizing when it gets to the other side. So what we have to do is when it gets to the other side right here, we have to do another random statement. So we're actually just going to copy these two lines of code right here, 8 and 9, and we're going to put them right here, and this will randomize it every single time. So let's hit refresh there, and we'll get them through the first tube. Boom, and it randomized. It went down to the bottom. Does that make sense? And it went up, and again, it's random every single time. That's 10% of the width or height, 10% of the height, and that's probably about 50% or 40% of the height, 30%. Awesome. So it's random every single time. That's really, really cool. Okay. Now, that's how you get it random. Now, how on earth do we do a score? We've got the score already set up, right? We went back up top on line 7 and did score equals 0. And then every time it gets to that width, it does go +1. So that's not when you go through the tube. That's when the tube makes it to the width. Okay, and let's get this displayed on the top of everything. And we're going to come down here to the bottom, and let's put it down here. We're going to fill it with white. We'll make it white, and we'll do font size, like 50. And then all we have to do is type in text and then score, and then we have to give it a position on the screen. So height 90, boom, and that's it. So look, there's our screen. Top right, there's our score. Okay, so I refresh it, it goes back to 0, and notice it's going to change as soon as it gets to the left. So it doesn't really have to matter whether I make it through the tube or not. It matters whether or not the tube gets to the edge. It's much easier to do it that way. Okay, and that's what we do. That's what it means when it's down at the bottom there. All right, now, because if I stop, it will continue to go, right? What we're ended up doing is adding a game over state, which will stop everything. Okay. But for right now, we're just going to leave it the way it is. Okay, we'll let it count as he goes down. All right, now what we're going to do, let's talk about the actual collision between him and the tubes. Now, we don't necessarily need to make it so it collides with the tube. Does that make sense? We need to make it so that if the Pelican is not in between that gap, so if he is not in that gap, so if he's here, so if he touches there, or if he's up there, then he'll stop and we'll move to a game over state. Let's actually do that right now. So what happens here, this is a finite state machine where if we are saying if the state of the game is game over, then what are we going to do? We're going to make the background go red for right now. Okay, and that's it. So what that means is if the state is game over, then boom, background goes to red. Well, right now the state is not anything. We have to create a state up top. So what we're going to do is we're going to create state of play. Play will be 1, and game over will be 2. So if we say, we'll refresh this here. Now we'll go into the game. Whereas if I come up here and I say state is game over, I refresh it. Oh, not game over. Game over. It goes to the red. That's the end of the game. Does that make sense? This allows you to be able to say, hey, where am I at in the game? Am I at the game over state or am I at the play state of the game? So if where are we at now? If his height here is less than or equal to 10%, that's when he hits the grass, right? We want the state to be what? You following me? His state will be the game over state. So now watch what happens when I hit that. Boom. We've gone in the game over state. Whereas if I'm up here, boom, he hits the 10%. We go to the game over state. Okay? All right, I'm going to pause it there so it doesn't go red again. But that allows you so that if he touches the grass, he goes to the game over state. Now we need it so that if he touches the tubes, he goes into the game over state as well. All right, so now we're going to come down here to the very bottom, and we're going to now test for collision's sake. So let's do test for collision. And what this is going to do, we're going to test if J, remember J is the width on the screen of the tube. Okay, so J needs to be greater than, let's see, it needs to be greater than 15% of the width and less than 25% of the width. And that's because this is the width of the Pelican here, right? So this is actually the width of the Pelican. We're just assuming it's around 25%. So it needs to be here, right? It needs to be right through there. And that's where the tube will end up going that way. So if I hit play, but we want the tube to be pretty much right there around the Pelican. All right, and we want the Pelican's height to be from here, from this bottom left point to the top. Well, what is that? That's I, right? So I has to be greater than or equal to H10, and I has to be less than or equal to tube height bottom plus 10% of the screen. And 10% of the screen is because it starts right there and goes up. So we don't want it, we want it from here to 10% of the tube up. So let's do refresh there, and boom. Oh, we haven't programmed it to do game over yet. So let's do that. So the state then will be game over. All right, so let's see if that works. Boom, he's going to hit there. And now notice he's going to go through it a little bit. Okay, so boom, there, that worked. That worked as well. That did not. And that's because of the width. So let's actually do this. Let's make J, let's just say J has to be less than 25. Let's just try that and see if that works. Make that. Okay. Now we can see if we can do boom. So yeah, see, he touched it. That's awesome. That's good. So boom, touches it. You're done. So he's good there. Okay. Cool, cool, cool. And then now what we want to do is for the top tube. So again, J has to be less than or equal to 25. And now what we're going to do is do an else if. Now if I is, let's see, where do we want it to be? It needs to be less than, actually it just needs to be greater than, yeah, it just needs to be greater than a specific height. So we'll take it, it needs to be greater than or equal to height minus the tube height top. Okay, then what are we going to do? State equals game over. Okay, so let's try this. Refresh there. Now if he hits the top, boom. That didn't work for him to get through. Okay, and that also worked. Yes, this is really good. We've got it work. The collision is working. Can we hold it up all the way to the top? Get through the first tube. Oh, that didn't work. Ah, okay, so that didn't work. So we want to make it... that didn't work. Okay, you see a little glitch here. Is if the tube... okay, so we're running into the problem here. Let's see if I can demonstrate it here. I'll pause it. Now, if I make the Pelican go up any higher, he will essentially still think that he's in the tube there. So then that comes to the width of the tube. So we need to make sure that J has to be greater than or equal to, let's just say, let's try 10% of the width, and let's see if that works. So he's got to go past the tube like that and go up. Awesome. That worked well. Sweet. So can I ran into the tube there. Can I fall into the tube? No, I was able to get through that. I was able to get through that as well. That I wasn't, though, so that's good. I like the way that this is turning out. Cool. Very good. We've got our Flappy Pelican down. He's able to go through all the tubes there. Boom. Let's see how much we can do. 2, 3, 4. Nice. Look at that. 5. So what we can do now is we said when it gets to the width, it makes the score go up. Let's actually make it so that it's not at the width, but it's at 20. Where is it? Width equals... Yeah, we'll just leave it. That's okay. that works out fine. He's not going to get hit once he gets through the tube there. So some of the other options are you can make it so that it goes to a game over screen instead of just a red background there. You can make it so that you have more tubes on the screen at one time. You can do some more jazzing up with the color of the tubes, an intro screen, all that kind of stuff. You can do a lot of cool stuff with this, okay? Pretty excited to see what you're going to be able to do with this. But good luck. I'm glad you guys were able to check this out with Flappy Pelican. Good luck in your Flappy game.